When you walk into a room and everyone assumes you don't belong, smile. That's how they miss what's coming. I learned that from my mother. And today, I smiled like it was second nature, even though my hands were trembling behind my back. It was my first time in the Sinclair Holdings executive boardroom. 12 seats of polished power, glass windows stretched to the clouds, and walls lined with old family portraits that looked more like oil-painted warnings than warm memories. And there I stood, in nude heels and a silk blouse, clutching a silver tray of coffee like the help. Black, no sugar, came the voice I'd been expecting all morning. Evelyn Sinclair. My mother-in-law. The queen of polished cruelty. She didn't look at me as she said it. She was too busy flipping through a file labeled Succession Options. I was one of them. She just didn't know it. Of course, ma'am, I said, steady. My voice never shook, no matter how much my heart did. Across the room, my husband Leo looked at me apologetically. He knew I wasn't supposed to be here serving coffee. He knew I wasn't just his wife. But Evelyn had insisted. She should learn what real leadership looks like, she'd told him before the meeting. A good wife should understand where she stands. So here I was. Coffee girl. Invisible. Intentional. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. You want to know who I am? My name is Amara Daniel Sinclair. I'm 27. My skin is the color of bronze sugar, my curls tame only when I let them be, and my smile, my real smile, is rare. I earned my MBA from Geneva Business School, graduated top of my class, interned at Fortune 500 firms under an alias, founded a startup that sold for $2.4 million last year. I'm also the legal majority shareholder in Sinclair Holdings, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, I was Leo's wife. The girl from that humble side of town. The one Evelyn believed married her son for money. She didn't know my mother was once the heart of this family, the secret they all tried to forget. I walked around the room with the tray, pouring the coffee Evelyn asked for, then moving to the next board member. The tension in the room wasn't mine, but I could feel it vibrating under the polished table. These were people making billion-naira decisions before breakfast, and I was the one they couldn't see. Perfect. Mr. Halbert, the CFO, gave me a polite nod as I poured his drink. I recognized that kind of nod. It said, I respect the gesture, but not the person behind it. He used to be one of my professors. He'd failed to recognize me under the Sinclair name. When I reached Leo, he took his coffee with a whisper. I'm sorry. I nodded once. Don't be. You didn't invite me here to be humiliated. She did. He opened his mouth to say more, but I had already moved to the last seat, Evelyn's. I placed her cup down gently, then looked her in the eye for the first time that morning. Will there be anything else, ma'am? She finally looked at me. Really looked. Her eyes were cold, almost amused. Yes, she said. Silence. That would be lovely. The board laughed. Quietly. Uncomfortably. I smiled again. I met Leo at an innovation summit in Nairobi. He was there on behalf of Sinclair Holdings, bored to death by the jargon of tech entrepreneurs. I was there pitching my second app, barely funded but overflowing with heart. He loved the way I thought. I loved the way he listened. We dated in secret at first. I knew his world, his name, his mother. I wasn't naive. I saw the walls before I even touched them. When he finally introduced me to Evelyn, she didn't fake a smile. She looked at me and said, "And what do your people do, dear?" My people. I believe you mean my parents. My late mother was an economist. My father teaches creative writing at Unilag. That was the beginning of her war against me. She tried to delay the wedding, rewrite the prenup, threaten Leo's inheritance, even suggest a quiet breakup settlement behind his back. But Leo loved me. And so we married, with or without her blessing. And I, quietly, began to plan. Evelyn tapped her nails against the table. Now that distractions have been dealt with, she said, motioning in my direction. Let's begin. A man in a blue suit stood up. I recognized him. Jason Clare. American-educated, sleek, ambitious. Evelyn had been grooming him for months to take over the firm after her husband's passing. He pulled up a slideshow titled, Sinclair 2.0, Global Expansion with Local Precision. My stomach tightened. Oh, slides. Seen those diagrams before. I had drawn them. Word for word, graph for graph. Jason presented my own proposal, one I had shared anonymously with the firm months ago under a pseudonym. Trap. I wanted to see if they'd use it, deal it, claim it. And now here it was, on a projector, in front of the same people who asked me to pour coffee. Evelyn beamed as Jason explained the market strategy, quoting statistics I'd memorized in my sleep. She clapped after every major point. Brilliant, Jason, she purred. Absolutely brilliant. Just the fresh leadership we need. I walked to the back of the room, silently retrieved my phone, and opened the document titled, Proof of Authorship, Amara D. Daniels. Then I cleared my throat. Madam Chairwoman, I said. Evelyn turned, annoyed. I thought I asked for silence. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I believe I can prove that Mr. Clare's strategy was plagiarized from my original work. The room froze. Jason stuttered. That's ridiculous. You're the assistant. No, I interrupted calmly. I'm the majority shareholder of Sinclair Holdings through a private equity trust managed by Daniels Capital. As of 6 months ago, my holding is 60.4%. Evelyn stood. That's absurd. Is it? I tapped a button on the remote and switched the screen. A legal certificate appeared. Sinclair Holdings share distribution, signed, sealed, notarized. You could have heard a pin drop. Let me make this clearer, I said, stepping forward. I'm not just Leo's wife. I'm the daughter of Adana Sinclair, your sister. The one you disowned for marrying outside your circle. Evelyn gasped, hand going to her mouth. My mother never wanted to fight you. She left her share in trust, hoping I'd use it when I was ready. Today I am. She stepped back. You planned this. No, I said. You did. The day you told me to fetch coffee instead of sit at the table. Jason had already shut his laptop. The rest of the board turned to me, some in awe, some ashamed. I walked back to Evelyn's seat and gently slid her coffee cup toward her. Still black, no sugar. The silence that followed my last sentence didn't feel real. It stretched, twisted, hung in the air like a blade no one wanted to touch. Jason Clare sat frozen, his eyes darting between me and the document on screen. Evelyn hadn't blinked since I'd mentioned my mother's name. Her perfectly painted lips parted slightly, but no words came out. For once, the mighty matriarch of Sinclair Holdings had nothing to say. I stepped forward, slow and deliberate, my heels clicking like a countdown across the marble floor. My heart was thudding against my ribs, but I didn't show it. The girl they thought came with coffee was gone. She had never really existed. What stood before them now was the rightful owner. The ghost of the woman Evelyn tried to erase, resurrected in the daughter she didn't see coming. Jason, I said coolly, would you like to explain how you acquired this strategy deck? Because unless you have a very specific reason for using the exact formatting, color palette, and phrasing I submitted under an internal R&D alias 6 months ago, this looks a lot like theft. He opened his mouth, shut it, opened it again. I was given these materials by Mrs. Sinclair, he stammered. She said they were from a consulting team. Liar! Evelyn snapped at him suddenly, venom in her voice. Don't you dare put that on me. I smiled faintly. The unraveling had begun. Let's not panic, Mr. Halbert, the CFO said nervously, his voice breaking the tension. Surely there's a misunderstanding here. Let's go through proper channels too. I turned to him, steady. There's no misunderstanding. There's just history you weren't told. I clicked to the next slide on the projector. A faded photo of a young woman with almond eyes, caramel skin, and a sharp jawline that matched my own. My mother, Adana. She was your founder's daughter. Disowned at 22 for marrying my father, a Nigerian literature professor. Her name was stripped from family records. She died of cancer when I was 18. Pause. She also left me 40% of Sinclair Holdings stock in a trust, along with the right to acquire up to 60% upon reaching age 25, conditions tied to her original inheritance. The men and women around the table looked at each other, whispers swirling. None of them had known. They hadn't even heard Adana's name. Evelyn had made sure of that. But money has memory. And paperwork never lies. Evelyn's face had drained of color. Her hands gripped the edge of the table like she might faint or lunge at me. I didn't care which. You forged silence, I said, looking her dead in the eye. But the truth was always ticking. She found her voice finally bitter and dry. This company was never meant to be yours. I stepped closer. And yet here I am. The chairman of the board, Mr. Ambrose, finally cleared his throat. He was an older man, one of the few who had known my grandfather personally. Is all of this verified? He asked carefully. Legal documents have been filed and authenticated. Sinclair's internal counsel has copies. The shares were transferred and logged 3 months ago. He looked down at his folder, brows furrowing. It checks out. Leo was the only one not looking away. His eyes met mine with something new. Not just love. Oh, maybe even guilt. I tried to tell her, he said softly. About your mother. About you. I know, I whispered. But she wasn't listening. Jason stood abruptly, sweat glistening on his forehead. If this is how you run things, ambushes and bloodlines, I want no part of it. This is chaos. Jason, I said calmly, you'll be receiving a formal letter of dismissal by tomorrow. And possibly a lawsuit, depending on how cooperative you are. He left without another word. That's when Evelyn rose, trembling. You think you've won. You think this is some glorious revenge. No, I said. This is reclamation. My mother built this company's first logistics structure. She drafted the supply chain blueprint still used in our West Africa branch. She never asked for glory. She just wanted her work to count. You erased her. You stole her name. You told Leo the first wasn't good enough for him. You made me fetch coffee in a room where I was the only one with the right to lead. Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. You humiliated me, Evelyn. And now I'm just telling the truth. She stared at me, trembling, lips parted in disbelief. This is still my family's company, she hissed. Your mother was weak. Emotional. Just like you. I stepped closer. If emotion means I won't throw away loyalty for profit, then yes, I'm emotional. If it means I remember where I come from, yes, I'm emotional. If it means I fight for people like my mother who were shut out, then I'll wear that with pride. You're not a leader, she said. Neither were you, I said quietly. You just had a louder voice. Ambrose straightened in his seat. As chairman, and with controlling shares now clearly held by Mrs. Daniel Sinclair, I moved to recognize her as interim CEO, pending full ratification at the next quarterly general meeting. No one objected. Not a single hand raised. The vote was silent but unanimous. I turned to Evelyn. You may remain on the board in a non-executive capacity if you choose. But I suggest you step down with what's left of your dignity. She looked around the room and saw what I already had. The end. Power doesn't always explode. Sometimes it evaporates quietly. She didn't cry. Evelyn Sinclair would never give me the satisfaction. But as she walked out of the boardroom, she took one last look at the coffee cup sitting untouched in front of her nameplate. And for the first time in my life she looked small. Leo came to me slowly, unsure. He reached for my hand. I knew you were brilliant. But this, I didn't know you had all this in you. I looked at him. You married a hurricane. You just thought she was a breeze. He laughed. But there was pain in his eyes too. I should have defended you harder. You still can, I said, taking his hand. Outside the glass windows, the city of Lagos was bustling. I had been born 10 blocks from here, in a tiny apartment where my mother once taught me multiplication using beans and torn notebook pages. Now I stood above that city, not as a guest, but as its daughter, its witness, its echo. I sat in the CEO's chair at the head of the table. It didn't feel triumphant. Felt right. Ambrose leaned toward me. You'll need to prepare for press fallout. Investors will have questions. I'm ready, I said. We start with integrity. Then we build from there. A secretary knocked and entered. Ma'am, she said, unsure. Would you like me to bring in refreshments for the team? Smiled. Yes, please. Coffee. Black. No sugar. And when she left, I turned to the board with my hands clasped. Let's begin. They said my victory was quiet. But quiet things are not weak things. Quiet things echo in people's minds long after the noise has faded. The day I took the CEO seat, I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just existed loudly without raising my voice. And that was enough. Within 48 hours, Sinclair Holdings became the most searched term in the Nigerian business sphere. Blogs speculated wildly. Unknown heiress dethrones matriarch. CEO revelation rocks billionaire family. Mixed-race daughter of exiled founder reclaims throne. Some even accused me of staging a coup. Others called me the Silicon Queen, a reference to my tech background. I ignored all of it. The truth needed no decoration. I had Leo beside me, publicly apologizing in a press statement for allowing his family's legacy of silencing women to reach his wife. He said I was the kind of leader the world needed, someone who knew what it felt like to be underestimated. I appreciated the gesture. But I didn't need a man to explain my worth. I was already living it. The board supported me cautiously at first. They were trained to fear what they didn't expect, and I was the storm that had entered without a sound. But when I brought in my first proposal, to reopen the abandoned women-led R&D division my mother once spearheaded, they began to see. Reviving this department isn't just sentimental, I told them at the meeting. It's strategic. Women-led innovation has been shown to produce faster user-centered solutions, especially in consumer markets. Our data proves it. We just never listened. This time they listened. They voted yes. Even Mr. Halbert, who once asked me if I had experience in real corporate environments, looked me in the eye and said, I was wrong. I didn't need his validation, but I accepted his respect. 3 weeks later, I planned something Evelyn couldn't have predicted. We were hosting Sinclair's 50th anniversary gala. A grand ballroom affair at the Eco Hotel with journalists, international partners, and most importantly, the public. The entire family was expected to attend, including Evelyn. She had gone completely silent since stepping down. I hadn't heard from her. But I knew she'd show up. She needed the spotlight, even if she had to share it. I stood backstage as the MC ran down the list of speakers. Leo was there, adjusting my necklace for me. I wore a black silk gown with a high slit and my mother's silver ring, a ring Evelyn had once called cheap. Now it gleamed like legacy. You nervous? Leo asked. No, I said. I'm ready. When I stepped onto the stage, the room applauded politely at first. But then someone began to stand. Then another. Until the entire room was on its feet. I wasn't just a girl anymore. I wasn't a shadow. I was the CEO. I took the microphone and let the applause fade before speaking. 50 years ago, I began. Sinclair Holdings was founded by a man with a vision, but also by a woman whose name was erased from our records. The whispers pressed on. She was his daughter, my mother, Adana Sinclair. She developed our earliest logistics systems. She saw a future where Africa could compete, not as a follower but as a force. And when she refused to fit the mold others set for her, she was cast out. I paused, letting the words hang in the ballroom. I am here because of her. Because truth doesn't die, it just waits. People clapped. More than I expected. Some stood again. Leo's eyes shimmered with pride. But my eyes weren't looking for him. They were looking past him. Her. Evelyn stood by the corner of the ballroom, alone, dressed in deep navy, her expression unreadable. She hadn't clapped. She hadn't moved. So I addressed her directly. Some of you knew Adana. Many of you were told to forget her. But I will not. Because everything I am, everything we've built going forward, will carry her name. I say this not out of bitterness, but out of truth. Her story matters. Her work matters. She mattered. The applause this time was thunderous. I stepped off the stage to flashing cameras, outstretched hands. Congratulations I once would have craved but now merely acknowledged. When the lights dimmed and the band played, I made my way through the crowd to Evelyn. She didn't flinch. Didn't run. I see you made it, I said calmly. I had to, she replied. I wanted to see if you'd survive. And her eyes swept over the room. You're not just surviving. I'm not, I agreed. I'm leading. She nodded once. Just once. That was Evelyn's version of a white flag. Then she said something I didn't expect. You look like her. Around the eyes. I know. She was soft, she added. Too soft for this world. No, I said quietly. She was kind. And you mistook that for weakness. Evelyn's jaw clenched. I was trying to protect the family. No, I corrected. You were trying to protect the image of the family. There's a difference. For a second the woman looked old. Not weak. Not broken. But tired. The kind of tired that comes from holding up a lie for too long. She looked away, then back at me. You made your point. I suppose this is the part where you tell me to disappear. I shook my head. No. I want you to stay. She blinked. You're still Leo's mother, I said. You're part of this family. But this time you sit at the table, as a guest. She swallowed. And you. I'm the host now. I turned to leave but then paused. Oh, I added with a small smile. There's a new coffee machine in the executive lounge. In. Screen. You might like it. She didn't respond. But I didn't need her to. That moment wasn't for her. It was for me. Later that night I posted a single photo on my private Instagram. No caption. Just a picture of me at the boardroom table, documents in front of me, coffee cup to the side, and the Sinclair logo on the wall behind me. The comments came fast. At African XX scene. That coffee girl energy is CEO level now. At Nigeria Business Daily. The calmest, classiest revenge we've seen all year. At Tech with Amara. Never underestimate the quiet ones. But the best comment came from someone I never expected. My father. At Professor D. Your mother would have been so proud. So am I. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I cried. Not from sadness. But because finally everything made sense. They thought making me small would keep me safe. They thought silence was a cage. They forgot silence can also be a forge. Place where steel is born. I was never just the girl with the coffee. I was always the storm with the crown. And now the world knows it.